Okay, I'm here with Monica Shay. We are in Medway, Massachusetts, and this is day one of a 3-day retreat. Monica, you're one of the leaders of the retreat. Tell us about this retreat and what it's for.
Well, this retreat is really designed to be a journey. So it is for people who are finding that they've been praying for issues in their lives, whether it's trying to overcome addictions, whether people's marriages are struggling, whatever it is, whatever they're struggling with, and finding that after praying for a really long time that it just seems that the Lord hasn't really been responding. And I've heard so many people say, I've been praying for such a long time, I've done all of these novenas, I go to confession, and it seems that God is not hearing my prayer, not answering my prayer. And what we're finding is that it's not so much that God's not answering our prayers, is that we often have unrepented sin, or we have ways that we've used our free will that oppose God. And what it ends up doing is blocking the grace in our lives. And we can't just pray it away. We really need to be very aware, have clarity of what it is that we've done, what our choices have been specifically in our own individual lives, and then also what have been the decisions and the choices that have been made by our family members. Because God has made us related to each other. He has made us connected. Because we're body and soul, we're connected to each other. So our choices that we make when we're connected through the familial bond affect one another. So this retreat is designed to provide that information. It is scripturally based, but it's almost in places where people kind of miss, where we hear over and over again, for instance, that the curses of the father are passed down to the 7th generation. And we hear these things a lot.
And they just go over our heads because we've heard them so often we don't think about them.
Right, exactly. We think, well, that's Old Testament, that was in the time of Moses. So what does that have to do with me today? I'm a good person. You know, I believe in God, I say my prayers, I'm a good person. So why am I still suffering? And when we go back and we really examine that passage, God also says, those who keep my commandments will be blessed to the 1000th generation. So what that means is if you keep God's commandments, he's basically giving you a survival kit, you know, to live in this world, to live in this life. And that if you keep his commandments, then the graces can flow, because then the enemy, the devil, cannot block them. So what we say in this retreat is that if you have unrepented sin, let's say, and you do not go to confession and receive that grace of healing, that it leaves a door open and it allows the enemy to come in and set up shop in your life.
And as long as the enemy will take any opening and opportunity that it has.
And it doesn't take much. It can start with the smallest infraction. And over time, I think what I've found is people will say, well, I did that, but lightning didn't strike me, or I wasn't found out, someone didn't find out that I did that, or my life didn't fall apart because I did that. And what then happens over time is, as the longer that goes, that we do not try and rectify whatever that first error was, that first decision that led us away from God in opposition to God, then that's where the enemy comes in and begins to speak in our ear and says, well, you know, that wasn't so bad. Why not do this? Why not do that? And we find ourselves heading down a path toward further and further distance from God. And with that lack of grace that can't come anymore, we become blinded. And we can no longer see how we came to where we are. Why are we suffering? Why aren't things going well in my life? Why when I look at my husband, do I see someone who's opposing me as opposed to my life partner, whom we love each other and we're supposed to support each other?
Well, you have a very good turnout, and I understand you have a couple of impressive speakers.
Yes.
Not including yourself, of course, who
No.
has demonstrated a very impressive speech already.
No, thank you. Yes, I'm really excited that we have, first we have Father Romain Rurangirwa, who is a priest from Rwanda, and he is a survivor of the genocide that took place in Rwanda. And what is incredible about Father Romain is that he survived, I think, he endured one of the most horrific times in history in his country, but he has this incredible light, this incredible joy in his priesthood, in his relationship with God. And that is something that he brings to all he touches. And he received an anointing for healing on a trip to Medjugorje. So I'm excited for him to be a part of this retreat, because not only is his story one where we can look at, I think we can see, each of us can see something of ourselves in his story, and whether it's in relation to family and choices that we make, and how we can realize we can head down a certain path and it will lead us away from life, or we can turn around and take perhaps the least desirable path, what looks like the least desirable path, and it will lead us to an abundant life. And that's really kind of his story in a nutshell. And then the other is Moira Noonan, the other person who's speaking. And I'm so thrilled that she is partnered with us in this retreat, because she really has lived the stories that she tells. She really has lived the information that she gives through her book, Ransomed from Darkness, which is her memoir of her journey from becoming a lapsed Catholic and then venturing into the New Age and occult practices, and really getting lost in that world, thinking she was doing good, and actually realizing that her life was beginning to fall apart because of it. And then she came back to the faith, and she has now been sharing her story. And also she's written another book which is really essential right now, which is called Spiritual Deceptions. And that one is a book of discernment, and it's a guide that takes us through all of the New Age practices and occult practices and tells us what they are and what are the consequences spiritually.
Now, how did you first become involved in retreats yourself?
Well, it's a good question, because it was something that I didn't really choose to do, where it was Father Romain and I began praying together about what it was that we should do. We both felt called to help people. And so we would go to adoration and we would ask the Lord to give us guidance. And so we were led to attend a healing seminar, Healing of the Families, and we both attended that together. And afterwards, Father Romain went to Medjugorje, where he received his anointing. And then we found that suddenly people were coming to us, whether it would be on the street, or we would be in a conversation with a group of people, and there would be one person that would come up to either him or me and would begin telling us their life story. So we began to realize that we were called to a ministry together. And from that point, we began doing private sessions with people. And we realized that we needed to do a group, because we had so many requests that it was time to really hold a retreat.
Now, is this your first retreat, or have you had several?
This is our first big retreat. This is our first public retreat.
Well, may I say you're doing a very good job. If this is their first retreat, you look much more organized than I would have expected for a first retreat. I wouldn't have known it was their first.
Well, thank you. We've attended a lot of retreats, so hopefully that's had something to do with it. But also we have Moira, who has given us her guidance, as she has spoken at many retreats. So she's been invaluable in giving us guidance. We did do our first retreat that was basically with family and friends. There were 12 people, and we thought we would try it out. They would give us feedback, let us know what we should do. And so they were really our first group, and that was a year ago this month. And they're here. They're here working the retreat with
What a
us.
coincidence, because as I was saying before I started the interview, I was on a retreat a year ago. In fact, a year ago today, I was on retreat. Well, what is the name of the ministry? Does the ministry have a name?
Yes.
It is?
The name of our ministry is Roots of Healing for Abundant Life.
And is there a website associated with it yet?
Right now I have a web page, and because we're new, right now it has the flyer on it. But after this retreat, I'm going to be creating a website and a blog so that we can begin sharing more information and sharing the stories.
Well, you send me the link and I'll link to it and link to the website and the blog.
That would be very nice. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much again for your time, and may this be a very successful retreat.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Monica.